Hello everybody, Glass Half Dead here, and today I want to do a tier list about Kill Team, specifically the Chalnath quarter, shall we call it. It seems like every 3 months, according to the roadmap, we're going to be getting 2 new teams in a box, and it seems 1 or 2 teams in White Dwarf. Let's dive straight in. I'm going to get a few teams on the board. We can discuss it, and then I'm going to start refining down through the list. One thing I would like to say is that if you want to fill this out yourself, then I'm actually going to do another kind of, this is my tier list, these are purely my thoughts, this video. But if you want to do this tier list yourself, I uploaded it, as you can tell. I'll go over the ranking scheme in a moment, and I uploaded all of the artwork so that we can all put our own tier list together. There's a link to this template in the description. If you want to fill out your own thoughts, then next week, maybe the week after, once everybody's had a chance to fill their tier list out, then I will actually go ahead and do like a community perception tier list or something like that. And yeah, I think that could be fun for next week. Let's dive straight into it. Let's discuss what is this ranking system I've created. I think it's pretty obvious, you know, bigger number is better. So at the top we have kind of the pentagon tier, right? That's obviously the best because it's the longest range. Then we have the square tier, then we have the circle tier, then we have the triangle tier, then we have the GHD tier. Do you see what I did there? D tier. That's the, trust me, it makes sense. So anyway, let's dive straight in, shall we? I think Marines are probably D tier. So we'll throw them on the board, right? As I say, I'm just throwing a few on there. Where do I think Gene Stealer cults are pretty good. Let's put them top tier. Okay, Pentagon tier, if you will. Harlequins, I think, have come out really well. Heretic Astartes, I would say they are above Marines, but probably below the others. Let's get Death Guard on there. Let's get Thousand Sons. Now, no, that's Thousand Sons, not Warpcoven. All of these ones, these templates here, which are the kind of the official looking artwork for the teams, they are the Bespoke Teams. So we've only got 6 of them so far. I'm gonna place them last, have a little bit of a think about how they affect everything, because I do want to quickly say that I think in general all of the Bespoke Teams are infinitely better. That's a stupid word to use. They're not infinitely better, but they are a cut above everything else. So really, this should be either this should be a compendium only tier list or a bespoke team only tier list. I don't think the two mix very well. I think that I will probably do another tier list later where I actually just do those, because I think that's actually more of a discussion. Here we are going to get some very clear lines of this compendium team just cannot beat this bespoke team, assuming that you are playing, you know, like an evenly skilled player. Now let's continue. I think that Death Watch, oh, this is good. I think Death Watch are actually the same tier as Astartes. They do have additional options, obviously, but I don't think they're necessarily better. Anyway, we're throwing it on the board. We might come back to it later. Let's keep going. I think Tyranids have done really well. I'm going to put them up there alongside everything else, actually. I think Craftworld, terrible. I think Greenskins, terrible. I think Imperial Guard, a cut above the rest of them there. Tau, I also like how Tau perform. I'm going to put them a cut above. Grey Knights, interesting. They are definitely above the other marine armies there. Oof. We'll come back to it. Not to worry. Talons. Now, Talons are a bit of an interesting one, because of course we all knew they used to be up here, but then they got the nerf. Where do they sit now? I'm going to put them up there still, but we'll come back to that. Okay. Kroot. I hear very conflicting things about Kroot, and I've got to be honest, I don't 100% know. I wouldn't put them below Tau or regular IG though. I would probably put them below Great Knights. So obviously I'm going to have to come back and refine this list a little bit, but it's okay. Admech. I don't think AdMech were ever bad. They have access to a lot of very interesting gunner options that are really going to punish people. Necron's terrible. Heretic Astartes, better than regular Astartes. Not as good as anything else up there, I'd say. Then we have Sisters of Battle. I'm going to use this alternative artwork here for the Sisters of Battle, which is a cosplayer. I think Sisters of Battle are strong, just straight out of the compendium. Being able to take 10 bodies with bolters and 3-up saves is just like weight of numbers good kind of thing. And they have access to some acceptable, you know, specialist killing weapons. So I definitely wouldn't put them on the same level as the GHD tier there, but we will think. Drukhari and Demons. I think Demons are definitely a cut above everything else. Drukhari, now I hear really good things about Drukhari. I'm going to put them up here for now. Okay, and then we just have the 6 factions left, the Bespoke factions. Cool, so let's start delineating a little bit here. I think Commandos are 100% top tier. There's no doubt about that. I think Krieg are beneath Commandos. I think AdMech seem to have not been given a chance to shine. I'd probably put them the same as Krieg for now. Warpcoven, we haven't had a tournament, a large tournament that has used Warpcoven yet. This weekend we have a 36-player tournament in London and I think a 60-player tournament in Madrid, where obviously we're going to be seeing these bespoke teams a little bit more. So I struggle to say where they are. I really like Warpcoven just for a lot of things about them, and I think they will be strong. But are they going to be Commando strong? Not sure. Let's put them... This is my tier list though. I don't need to have proof for anything I'm saying. I think Warpcoven have the capability to be strong, but I don't think they're Commandos strong. I'll put them beneath Commandos for now. I'll put them beneath Commandos. I think Tau have the capability to be top tier, and I think Novitiates, they're not bad, but I think they are a cut below Commandos. Okay, that is my initial placements for the tier list, at like 8 minutes in there for you. Obviously, this was just me throwing things on the board. Let's start really thinking about things now. So I'm totally happy with Commandos and Tau being top tier, being Pentagon, being red, being 6. 100%, that's where they stay. Cool. I think those are solid. Talons? Harlequins? I think Harlequins... I think Harlequins deserve to stay there. I think Harlequins came out of the compendium really good, really strong. I think Tyranids actually should be taken down a notch, because although Tyranids are very strong, I think that they do run into complications. They run into things that they are going to struggle to handle. Drukhari have access to essentially like a hybrid GA2 Bolter Discipline Hateful Assault type thing. It costs you a CP to use though, so it's not like an always on thing. Although, you know, once their Bespoke team comes out, maybe that's their thing. Maybe they always get to use Power from Pain. Like, just that's their ability instead of a CP. That would be insane. My god. That'd be really good. That'd be cool, actually. But I feel like because of that, I don't know, Drukhari are strong, but they're also quite fragile. They're going to come up in some real problems. So I'm probably going to knock them down. Harlequins are staying. I'm happy with Talons also staying. I think Talons deserve to stay at the top tier for several reasons. Firstly, because it is possible to just run 4 models, and from a cognitive load perspective, that just makes being better easier. I'm not saying that they are now actually broken top tier, but purely from cognitive load perspective, you can probably get, like, essentially, whilst your opponents in general are going to degrade with their mental capacity throughout the day, if you're playing 4 models, you're still pretty chilled out. You're also going to be finishing your games pretty quickly, and if you swap to doing, you know, either 5 or 10 sisters, they also have good things about them that were not nerfed at all. So I actually think that Talons stay top tier, but I will say again, we haven't had many tournaments since like a month ago since the FAQ dropped, so that's open to change once I see new data. But right now, top tier. Genestealer cults, I think Genestealer cults are really good, and they have some I think they are top tier because of their ploys, not because of the bodies you're taking, but I think that they do have access to bodies that can deal some really interesting levels of damage. I haven't released the video yet. I need to write it so that it's not confusing, but I have a video coming up which is essentially talking all about FABD. If you're a Patreon, you've already seen my discussion on this, or part of a script. It's fight actions before death and how you can try and quantify and correlate that into how good something is into other factions. So for example, if you are able to make a single fight action before you die, but you also kill an enemy when you die, you have a FABD of 1. And Genestealer cults, although they are very not good at surviving, they do quite a lot of damage consistently and not requiring any CP, so they still have a relatively decent FABD, whereas for example other things less FABD. In fact, and this will make more sense when I get into it in its own video, commandos have a really amazingly high FABD because they have access to it's just a scratch. Now that's a CP, but it essentially extends your life by a crazy amount because obviously it scales. So against one model it might only save you you know, 3 hit points, but against another it might save you 7 hit points. It's nuts. It's just very good mechanically, being able to just straight up ignore a melee hit, which is why commandos are top tier, by the way. But likewise, Genestealer cults have the metamorph bodies, which have a really good FABD score. Likewise, all of Harlequins, very easy to kill, but you have ploys that allow you to do weird things, and you have prismatic blur, which allows you to just straight up 50-50 parry everything, which is insane, which is why they're top tier. There you go. I probably should have explained all of that before I got to this. That video is coming up later. I've taken those two down. I think that Genestealer cult... Okay, I'm happy with that as my top tier. I'm happy with that as my top tier. Yes. Krieg, I think... Krieg I'm really conflicted by. Krieg are good. They have some interesting ways of winning, but I just don't think they stack up that well compared to the other top tier lists there. I think they're an amazing second. Like, they are just second, but I think that's where they belong. Do I really need to talk about Pathfinders? Pathfinders are insane. They have amazing shooting. They have great ploys. They've come out of the Bespoke team. They've come out of Chalnath really well. The only thing that can stop them, in fact, is heavy cover. That does kind of defeat their team. And but what's my next tier list? Heavy cover, light cover, scramble terrain. I mean, how do you factor that into something, right? You just have to acknowledge that it is a thing that defeats, that it's a hard counter, but it's also something you don't control. Unless, from a competitive sense, we want to talk about player-placed terrain being the standard, and that's not how it is at the moment. Although maybe it should be. It's its own video, maybe. AdMech, I haven't... This is my own failing here. I don't really care about AdMech that much, so I haven't really seen them be amazing. I think I fought against them once. They seemed fine. I might actually drop AdMech down. But is that only my own ignorance? Probably. They have done well. I believe they did do well at SCO recently, but Novitiates, whatever they're called. For some reason I can't pronounce their name. I really like them. I think Novitiates have... I think they're really good. I think if someone learns them, and I think they have some really strong matchups, because their acts of faith allow them to be so consistent, And if you really get into the way that they play and really understand that, then you are going to be a hard counter to certain lists. And I think they're strong. I think they're really strong, to the point that I almost want to put them to Pentagon tier. Is there a reason I'm not? Yes, because I think Commandos beat them hands down every time, 100%. That's the only reason, and therefore, because they are hard countered by Commandos, but then maybe Commandos are broken. Maybe a good player versus a good player. You know, let's assume a complete mirror match in skill. Do Commandos always win? If you don't know, I currently believe that Commandos are genuinely the strongest team in the game. Like, if there was another tier above this, above Pentagon tier, it would just be Commandos on their own. Obviously, I can't really show that in this tier list. Regardless, whatever. All I'm saying is, if there was a tier, if there was a 4-inch tier or if there was a 4.5-inch tier, let's give it another geography shape. It can be geometry shape. That can be a hexagon, right? That makes sense. Let's not get into it. Let's not get into the shape thing. Then I would probably put Sisters there. I think that they are above Krieg. I think they're above Admech. They're definitely above Tyranids and Drukhari. Does that mean I need to drop Tyranids and Drukhari? And I think Warpcoven are strong, but I think they are... I don't think they have enough models to hang with the big boys. Yeah, like, again, let's assume that someone is playing into them, knows how they play, like knows Warpcoven really well with their own team. I think you'll just be able to win against Warpcoven. I'm keeping Warpcoven where they are. It's fine. It's fine. That's something to think about for another team. Having thought about it, actually, I think that everything I have on this second tier is super strong, and I'm going to drop Tyranids and Drukhari. No, let's keep them up there. Let's keep them up there for now. Let's sort out my GHD tier and my 1-inch tier. Okay, Sisters, Tau, Grey Knights. Let's bump Grey Knights up. Grey Knights are undoubtedly the best of the Marine factions, but the Loyalist Marine factions, without a doubt. That Relentless the Stormbolters, super strong. And their real advantage is just how much they can do in both ranged and melee. It means that yes, you have no swap in your team, but it doesn't matter because your guys can do everything. Now this does mean, you know, if somebody comes into you like and they like just kind of wreck you, for example, I want to say Chaos Demons, like that 4/6 on a Bloodletter, or even a Demonette going into you with literally falchions, you're still going to need 2 hits to kill them. They're so reliable, really, really good. And I think you are going to have really tough matchups because you're only 5 models. I think I want Astartes, which is actually what they are, Heretic Astartes. Astartes. I think they're up there as well. Having 6 bodies with 12 wounds is really nice, with the 3-up save. I think Heretic Astartes pretty strong. They also have some very interesting ways to use their cultist and deployment shenanigans, so I'm happy with them being up there. I think Admech can stay where they are, and I do think, to be honest, that I think this is pretty accurate actually. My only concerns are Sisters and Demons. I think everything else on this list is now I'm pretty happy with actually. I'm going to put both of them onto, what are we on? Circle tier. 2-inch circle tier. I think both of those are really good. Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna bump Greenskins up as well. I think. So we've got all the Marines on the bottom. That's fair. Craftworlds, yeah, they're doing really poorly. Necrons. Oh, Necron's bottom tier feels wrong. They've got some really solid shooting. I think they should be bumped up as well, actually. Yeah. Okay. Boom. That's my tier list. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay. Is there anything that looks out of place? Let's have another look. Top tier, Pentagon. We've got Genestealer Cults, Harlequins, Talons of the Emperor, Commandos, and Pathfinders. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I think that's a solid list. The only questionable thing there, maybe, would be Genestealer Occults. That might... like, maybe that should drop down, but they're staying up there because the ability to use Cult Ambush is something that most people probably don't know how to play around. And it's going to catch a lot of people completely off guard. Or at the very least, even if they know exactly what it is, it's just an ability that is so difficult to play around because of how orders work and the first turning point, obviously. Then we have Square Tier, so that's a solid Pentagon tier. Square Tier, we have Krieg, Admech, Warpcoven, Sisters, Drukhari, Tyranids. I'm going to drop Drukhari. I don't think Drukhari deserve Circle the Square Tier. We'll talk about that when we get to them now. The Tyranids? I'm definitely happy with Tyranids not being the top tier. Do they really hang next to the rest of them there? I'll keep them there. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that, sure. Yeah, all of them deserve to be on there. As I said before, maybe Sister Novitiates deserve to be on the top tier. Like, if somebody sent me this identical list and they had their sisters on Pentagon tier, I'd be like, yeah, cool, that makes sense. Likewise, Warpcoven, I'm undecided. I'm really waiting until this weekend to see how they perform for me to kind of solidify my own thoughts. The only reason I haven't played Warpcoven yet is because they have kind of so many options when it comes to the psychic powers. I haven't quite decided what I want to do there, but I do have all the models, so I will presumably start playing them at some point. Grey Knights, Heretic Astartes, Sisters of Battle, Ecclesiarchy, sorry. Chaos Demons and Drukhari. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm happy I dropped the Drukhari. I'm happy with that row being that. I'm okay with that. I think that's pretty spot on. Grey Knights, like, I'm not saying that every faction within here plays brilliantly into every other faction, or perhaps a lower down faction is actually one of the hard counters of a higher faction. Like, obviously you always get those small anomalies, but I think generally that's what I'd be looking at. Yeah. I haven't seen many people play Ecclesiarchy, but just 10 Bolter Sisters, well, obviously it would be 7 Bolter Sisters, a gunner, 2 gunners, a heavy gunner, and a Sister Superior. Like, they're durable, and they're pretty killy. So, I'm okay with that. Yeah. I'll keep it. Thank you. Guard, I'm actually so that's the circle tier. I'm pretty happy with everything there. Triangle tier. Okay, I'm definitely running up to the limits of my knowledge, and I'm very much getting into my own personal biases. But I really feel like Kroot should be above that. I will go and play Kroot at some point. I haven't finished painting the team fully, so that's why I haven't really played them yet. But I almost feel like Kroot should be above where they are now, because you just have so many bodies. They have the only model in the game that's full circle movement instead of 3. You've got a really cool big gun in the Krootox. Like, yeah, okay. You know, it's great for me to say something, but until we see them played and they perform, difficult to talk about. Again, much as I was saying with the above models, that the above picks, if I were to see Novitiates in the top tier, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Likewise, if I were to see Imperial Guard in the bottom tier, I wouldn't complain. They could be there. I know a lot of people are talking about running them as Scions, and Scions, yes, have some pretty good shooting, some pretty good guns, but you do just fold like paper. I think if I were to see them in the bottom tier, I wouldn't really take issue with that. I'm not saying they're necessarily bad. I'm just saying that, let's say as a beginner, I wouldn't really advise people that are looking to have a team that lasts them from beginner to expert. I probably wouldn't advise you to go Imperial Guard. Is kind of the way I'm viewing all of this. Tau, this might just be my own personal bias here, but I like Tau. And I was really looking forward to playing them, but unfortunately my army, my faction wasn't ready until the Pathfinders released, at which point I played them and was like, oh, well, why would I ever play proper Tau now, when I have Pathfinders? So, I think they have some interesting abilities, they have some strong weapons, and I actually like them for just how varied they are. Like, I think they're a great team to play out of the compendium, but yeah, they're definitely not bottom tier, but I definitely wouldn't put them above Circle, so I'll keep them where they are, I guess, for now, because that's where they are. AdMech, again, really strong gunner options, but, well, you know what? A 4-up save is really nice compared to everything else on that tier with a 5-up save, kind of. Whatever. I'll keep them where they are. Greenskins, now I have zero interest in ever playing Greenskins, but they have done well in tournaments. So I would almost, like, if I were to be completely unbiased, I would probably say that Greenskins should be Circle tier. I don't think they're actually Triangle tier, but I just don't want to see people playing them. They're a boring team. Go and play Commandos. If you're an Orc player, you have access to the best team in the game right now. Don't play Greenskins. There you go. Necrons. Necrons have really good shooting, but I think that if you're getting shot by Necrons, then I think Necrons have a pretty hard counter in melee. Chances are Necrons are going to be playing Warriors with their Reapers, so only the 6-inch gun. As soon as that guy closes into combat, they're not great in melee, so if you're a melee team, for example Assault Intercessors, which is a team that is generally terrible, you could just kind of wipe them off the points, and then you just sit there. The Immortals, although good in melee, you could just be concealed from them. So and then they're so slow, there's not much for them to do. So I struggle to see Necrons going above. I definitely wouldn't put them above Circle tier. I might put them to Circle, but I'm happy keeping them in Triangle purely for movement reasons. And then we get to GHD tier. We have the regular Astartes, who I think everyone agrees they're probably the worst. No, I don't want to say they're the worst faction at the moment. That's probably Craftworld Eldar. But they're just a bit boring as a faction, because you just take 5 of the same data sheet and it's like, okay. And they do have really good abilities, but in my opinion, let's take for example Bolter Discipline. The only reason Bolter Discipline is a mandatory auto take is, this is going to be controversial, because you're playing against a bad player. There you go. If you ever have a turn where more than one of your models gets to Bolter Discipline, you're playing against a bad player, or you're not playing with enough terrain. There you go. That's how that works. So their defining ability, Bolter Discipline, shouldn't be being used. And if you take into account the fact that that's my view on it, they're terrible. Imagine playing Marines and you didn't have Bolter Discipline. Literally the worst team in the game, I would probably say. And I argue that if you're able to use Bolter Discipline, your opponent has either colossally messed up or just doesn't understand the game. Or there's not enough terrain. So that's my general take on... let's not even talk about how bad Assault Intercessors are or how bad Heavy Intercessors are. They're all bad. They're just terrible. So that's my hot take on generic Astartes. I will say, I think Scouts are pretty fun, but I don't think they're good enough as well. Although I haven't played them, because I still need to build that team, and getting the right weapon loadouts onto Paladite Enforcers or the new Primaris, from the Crusade squad, that's a whole conversion project that I'll get to one day. Death Guard, super slow. I will say that I think Death Guard are actually... You know what? Maybe they deserve to be above GHD tier, because I think Disgustingly Resilient is so good. It's almost as good. I mean, not quite, but it's almost as good as the Commando's ability. It's just a scratch to just ignore an attack. It's so strong. Obviously their balancing factor is that there's only 5 models and they're super slow. honestly, I wouldn't play Poxwalkers with Death Guard. And then when you think, okay, so no Poxwalkers, it's only ever 5 models and you're all movement 2, it's like, eh. And again, if you take into account my thoughts on Bolter Discipline from Astartes, put it in here, replace it with Malicious Volleys, which is their name for Bolter Discipline, and it's just like, yeah, they're not a good team. I don't think they should ever be placing particularly highly in an event. They will get hard countered by a lot of teams. I have lost to Death Guard, so please understand, when I'm saying all of this, I have lost to all of these teams that I've put in bottom tier, okay? Just keep that in mind. Then we have Thousand Sons, same issue as Death Guard. You're only 5 models. Psychic power is super cool, super fluffy, but apart from that, you're just rubrics. Bit boring. Death Watch. Now, obviously not having any delineation, I've only got 5 categories, right, so I can't do too much, but only having them on, I think that they are the same as Astartes. Now, that probably makes sense to some people, because they are literally the same faction, but Death Watch are the only sub-faction that we have at the moment. Removing their access to scouts probably hurts them, because you have to remember you've got to be thinking of rosters in this game. You can't be thinking of individual lists. They have access to a good roster, but you're only 5 Marines with 11 wounds. Same as Grey Knights, except Grey Knights, in my opinion, are more flexible and more reliable. Why is this? Because when you have Death Watch, that Bolter Discipline never doing anything, or it shouldn't be. Right, you should be taking your leader probably with a plasma gun. Plasma gun's always a take. You take the gunner with a plasma gun. You take a fighter who doesn't have any bolter, and then you take a heavy. And at that point, if you're taking a heavy, and you know that Bolter Discipline is only working on that one model, you might as well take a rocket launcher. The frag cannon, which has the alternating fire to either be really killy on a single model or have blast. I don't know, yeah. And then you don't have access to scouts. Now, why do I mention scouts? Even when I don't know they're particularly good, they are just a completely different way to play the game, and therefore a good addition to the roster, because it means that whoever you're playing into, they are expecting you to drop 5 guys with 11 wounds, and you instead drop 10 guys with, I think, are they 9 wounds, 10 wounds? Like, that's a completely different thing. So you can quite easily, I would say, bait someone into taking the complete wrong list, you know? But you can't do that with Death Watch, because you don't have access to scouts. And then we get Craft World. Craft World, this is a tough one to put there, because they actually, like, those rangers are really sneaky. A lot of shenanigans to play with them. And I think that, and like, actually sometimes really frustrating to fight against. Like, really frustrating. And there's not much you can do. Like, if you have a bad terrain setup, or you get given the bad side of the board, you're basically just guaranteed to take like 3 or 4 ranger shots to the face every turn. And there's not really anything you can do about it, because they're all silent weapons. So yeah, that's look forward to that, I guess. And that's it. That's my entire tier list. Well, thank you very much for watching, everybody. Again, link in the description to this tier list template. Please go and fill it out for yourselves, and next week, the week after, I will do a community-based tier list, and then at some point I'm also probably going to do these were the results from the tournaments that happened this weekend, what does this mean for the game, sort of thing. That'd be cool if you could do that. Also, if you like this kind of thing, check out my Discord, my Facebook. If you want to financially support me, my Patreon, that's greatly appreciated, especially in these trying times of the economy. Apart from that, if you could leave a like, a comment, and a subscribe, that would be awesome. Thank you very much, everybody. This has been Glass Half Dead. I hope you've had a good day and continue to have a good day. Kill Team tier list, yay. Bye.